How's it going, everyone? This is your Astrology Horoscope for Friday, April 12th, 2024. I'm astrologer Alex Skyles, and welcome to the Moon Base. Hope you guys are having a great week. Happy Friday. This moon in Gemini the moon came into Gemini yesterday, so I really felt that this moon in Gemini really is triggering this Mars-Saturn conjunction, right? And when we went through the conjunction on Tuesday and Wednesday, it was a very positive move forward, right? It's generating a lot of positive momentum. But this moon in Gemini, I definitely felt it yesterday where it definitely is kind of popping the lid off some things, and definitely shaking things up and making things a little interesting. So, today, this moon is going to make its exact square to this Mars-Saturn. Because, Mars is going to come to 16 degrees today. But, it's still like, they're still pretty close. But, this moon is going to be squaring the exact degree and crossing that, point of where the conjunction was, and I definitely think, it can, really test our emotions, and kind of test how we react to things, how we respond to things, it's kind of putting the pressure on of like, hey, like, are you just going to let the emotions kind of drive the ship here? Or are you going to kind of step back and observe things and look at things from both sides, and take more of a neutral perspective and not get so lost in the sauce, because I definitely think this moon in Gemini making a square over here, things can get a little unsettling. It can feel a little crazy. It can feel like, it's hard to rein in, the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that come up. And it's hard to just not react emotionally and respond to things in just a instinctive and impulsive way, with Mars, Saturn. But, the test and the lesson here is to be able to pause, take a pause, look at things from both sides, and let things, develop before you really make a solid decision or have a strong opinion about things, and with this moon in Gemini, it's given us the opportunity to really have a more neutral perspective of kind of the more intense side of what this Mars-Saturn can bring up. Because the Mars-Saturn is a very positive move forward, for a long-term gain, a long-term journey, a long-term trek, long-term spiritual growth, long-term growth in any area of our life, but particularly on a subconscious level and a spiritual level. This is Pisces that we're dealing with. So, with the moon here, it's like, man, like definitely, it could feel like we want to, it feels like we need to defend ourselves more than we really should, It's like, it could be very easy to kind of overreact with this moon square Mars with Saturn, and sometimes it can, pull us into places where it's like, man, it's hard to tell what is real. I definitely think this energy is kind of popping up. Like yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw this on my Instagram, but like I'm pulling out of the grocery store and all of a sudden, like there's a helicopter flying like super low, and I turn the corner and there's just like a million cops in the middle of the road, all with their guns drawn, like pulling these guys out of a car, like, and it was just like total madness and total chaos. I was like, oh, here we go, Moon Gemini squaring this Mars Saturn. This is where the more malefic side of this energy pops up, is this kind of like this unexpected, crazy, like, whoa, what the hell is that? I did not expect to experience or witness that, and it was definitely a good example of how, like, some very strange kinds of things can come up. A lot of facts can come up to the surface now. A lot of truths can start to bubble up, and definitely, like, if you feel like you need to express your truth, it can trigger some people, So it's like, we don't want to be like coming at people with, an overwhelming amount of force in our words. We want to be able to kind of level with people and try to stay in in that place of understanding and compassion, but also deliver our truth, And if there are facts to be shown, it can definitely trigger people, because when it's with Gemini, it's like it goes two ways. Gemini can bullshit a lot, right? Especially when it makes squares over to Pisces energy like this. There can be a lot of BS, some kind of deception with words, right? So there's things that can be misleading, but at the same time, it's like Gemini is just like, well, I know how you feel. I understand your feelings, right? But here's the facts on paper. Here's the statistics, So, and definitely things, in the work environment, and your immediate environment, some tense things can pop up that, it's like we have to address, we have to face. It's just not, we don't want to let it suck us into some place where things can kind of pop the fuck off, because with this moon squaring Mars like this with Saturn, things can pop off, they can get rowdy. So, communication and being able to communicate in a healthy way is crucial. And it can be hard with this Mercury retrograde. I'm really feeling this Mercury retrograde now. The past few days, it's just been like, really testing my patience personally. And this moon making this square to Mars, our patience can be really tested. It's like, how much can you take, and still maintain that stoic, strong version of yourself. And I think what's important too, to top that off, is, later in the day, this moon is going to make a trine to the south node and sextile the north node, so after this square to Saturn, the moon will square Saturn, I think we can start to understand that, when difficult things pop up, it was for a reason. It was for a purpose, karmically, especially, it's like, well, with the identity crisis that some of us can be experiencing right now, where healing really needs to take place, especially with how the relationship issues have kind of distorted our perception of the trajectory of the future we want to create for our own selves and our own identity, but also like how, confusing it's been going through some of this Chiron energy, especially with Mercury retrograde. It's like, the pieces are slowly coming together, but we don't have it all quite yet, until Mercury comes direct and then crosses, Chiron again. Mercury's about to conjunct Chiron while it's retrograde here tomorrow. Going into the weekend, through this weekend, we're going to be feeling that. So, I think being able to communicate our ideas and being able to communicate, our truth, and our experience, in a truthful and honest, factual way, and definitely dealing with the more truthful side of things with this moon squaring Saturn and Mars and Pisces. There definitely can be some mistrust that could pop up here, but as the moon makes these, good aspects to the nodes, I think karmically we can understand, like, okay, like if we could just at least communicate about it, and share ideas about it, we can understand it better, and look at things from another person's angle, with this moon trining the south node, being able to see it from, your partner's angle or whatever version of the relationship that it is, a business partner or, a creative partnership, family partnership, because if we can kind of bounce back and reflect a positive, message or some positive information and not get stuck in kind of the crazy shit, I think all around we can help each other become better versions of ourselves. And I think that's what's coming up today. So we do have a choice, it's like, it can be easy to kind of just, it's like, just fall into an argument, right? This moon squaring Mars, or fall into just the intensity or the aggression, or just letting, your instincts drive the ship, and it's not going to work with this moon in Gemini, right? This moon in Gemini is reminding us, it's like, hey, we need to really breathe, Gemini rules the lungs. We need to breathe. When things get intense or, aggression pops up, difficult conversations pop up, it's just, being able to breathe and actually talk about things is where we can actually move through things in a healthy way. So, and it can be challenging with this aspect, And then, the moon will square Mars at 16. Mars comes at 16 degrees. So this is when it's like there can be some conflict, there can be some, intensity, in conversation, So I think just being able to be patient, Mars can really be impatient. And if we fall into the trap of losing our patience, it's like we can kind of lose grip on reality with this aspect here with the moon squaring Mars. We don't want to fall into that trap, and we don't want to fall into a trap of like, when things get difficult, things get challenging, of just wanting to escape, It's like being on the surface and trying to maintain like, a surface level approach with this moon in Gemini is crucial, and it's going to go one or two ways with these transits. It's like, trying to hold on to a reality where you feel like there's nothing to hold on to, or trying to hold on to the words of somebody or something or some situation that, was said, previously, that, maybe when this Mars-Saturn conjunction happened, it's like maybe you've been holding on to something that it's just hard to let go of, and now it's like you just want to say how you feel, about something. And it's like, if you're going to say how you feel with this aspect, you also got to give the example. You got to present some sort of factual information to find understanding, and not just be saying things from some emotional place that can totally confuse people or confuse the situation, or just, it can, be challenging to just be in reality with this aspect, But the moon will make a nice sextile to Chiron. And so I think, moving through the difficulty, this is karmic stuff that can pop up, If there are difficult things that do come up today, it's karmic. It's very much karmic. We're still in the eclipse cycle, right? This moon trining the south node, sextiling the north node, while making this square to Mars and Saturn. And then after those aspects happen, then the moon makes a, supportive aspect to Chiron. So moving through the difficulty and just taking each moment with each breath and just trying to be objective and be neutral and not attached to the difficult emotions that can come up with this transit, And just remember that what the Mars-Saturn really is about, despite the difficulty, is really being able to move forward in a very structured, grounded, positive way. And this is a reminder that it's just like, you got to play it cool. You got to keep it straight. You got to keep your room clean. You got to play by the rules with Mars and Saturn. If you're not going to play by the rules, it's going to lead you down some weird path, a weird place. And there are rules, there are boundaries. That's what Saturn's all about. And this moon in Gemini is just like, hey, like, it's testing the boundaries, but also, trying to tell us, some important information. I mean, we just had this Mercury Cazimi with the sun yesterday, so there's still important information that's popping up, and definitely I think some of that information can kind of be surprising with this moon squaring Mars and Saturn. Things that you didn't know about, or interesting things that you didn't expect, or maybe that you kind of have to stand up for and say, hey, like, this isn't actually true. Here's the facts, right? And that can be triggering. But going through all of that and moving through that, reminding ourselves that it's like we have to stay on the path. We have to stay on top of, the reality of what our existence is and what this 3D reality, this 3D Saturnian reality is, and keep moving forward and keep, doing the right thing and keep putting in the work and keep putting in the effort, and Mars and Saturn is finally kicking us into gear. So, moving through the difficulty, this moon will try or sextile Chiron, in a very supportive way, saying, hey, going through the difficulty and being able to communicate, and understand one another's true identity, and also validating, someone's identity or, another person's identity, and maybe, to see both sides, the dark and the light, Pisces is a dual sign. Gemini is a dual sign. It's like there's two sides to the situation. Aries goes one direction, right? And that's towards where it wants to go for itself, and it knows what it wants. Aries knows what it wants, So if we want to move in that direction of like really just like, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is what I must do with that North Node in Aries, it's like we have to, be able to see both sides of things, especially when things get difficult, because this is a moment where information that can pop up or conversations that can be had or, any sort of kind of unexpected, things that can just kind of show up in your life today, moving through this, moon in Gemini. It's like, yeah, it can be difficult, but there's also a lot of room for more healing to be had because we're not done with this, Once we start moving out of Aries season, it's like, oh shit, And then we'll have Mars in Aries, which will, that's what we are really waiting for, is when Mars comes back in Aries. That's when the fire's really going to light up, But this moon is reminding us, it's like, hey, we have to be neutral, when things get difficult. You got to be patient. We can't just let the emotions take over, And when we can do that, and acknowledge another person's, true self and deliver a good message and deliver good information, like that comes back to us, of self-acknowledgement, And I think that's what Chiron and Aries is trying to teach us, is that, it's like we all want to be validated for who we are, And I think being able to like share positive information with people can also, generate a new sense of confidence within a relationship or within a, some kind of important connection. I think with the moon making the south node trine to the south node today. It's like, there is this important connection and important relationship in our life that, we have to really communicate about and really express how we feel, and express the truth of how we feel, you know. And I think a lot of truths and a lot of facts with this moon in Gemini is coming up too, because, Mercury's retrograde, Mercury's dispositing the moon, and, the emotions can definitely be intense, but the lesson with the moon square Saturn is being able to control your emotions and being able to detach and being able to be neutral and see things from both angles, and understanding that there's, two outcomes too, and we have a choice. Are we going to stay in the light, or are we going to take a dark path, right? I know Gemini always gets associated with the twins. I think that's a more modern approach, which is fine, whatever you want to call it. But, I think hermetically, it's Gemini is all about the duality, the light and the dark, or the masculine and the feminine. It's not the twins. To me, it's not the twins, It's, if you can have a neutral perspective emotionally, you can see both sides, And I definitely think too, like, seeking astrology and wanting to understand astrology, like, that's where you have to do your best to be, is maintain a neutral position, The Magician card, it's very Gemini, Let's see what we got going on here. We got the Page of Wands. So, it's like we have the magic in the palm of our hands, but it's like you could lose it just as fast if you're not controlling your environment, controlling your emotions, maintaining a healthy balance of, whatever kind of lifestyle you choose, and maintaining your environment. I think too, it's like this moon in Gemini is making this square to Mars and Saturn too. It's like, man, some environmental things can pop up, and it's like, damn, like, I can't believe I left that mess for however long, I can't believe I haven't done my laundry in 2 weeks, that kind of thing, So this is kind of a reminder that it's like, we just have to look at the, what's right in front of us, right? The Page of Wands is, looking at the magic that's right in front of him, and that's what Gemini is all about. It's being able to see what's right in front of you. The opposite of Gemini is Sagittarius. Sagittarius, their gift is to be able to see as far as the next galaxy, right? Into the next dimension, into the next universe, but with this moon in Gemini, it's reminding us that it's like we have to just maintain a sense of locality and focus on what's right in front of us and not get too far out and get too lost in the emotions, and be as neutral as we can when things get difficult, because this moon square Mars and Saturn can bring up some challenges and it can bring up some difficulty. But when the moon sextiles Chiron, we can have healing conversations that can start to, help us understand even more about what this Chiron experience is, and Mercury retrograde, and, Mercury dispositing the moon. So, these next few weeks, especially before we get to the Scorpio full moon, which is going to square Pluto, it's like we're really trying to put the pieces together of what this Chiron is all about. This eclipse just lit that up. This eclipse was at 19 degrees of Aries with Chiron at 19. So we're going to keep getting more information about what this is and what we need. And the information coming through, I think, today with this Mars-Saturn is just like, we have to be patient and we have to keep it cool, because there's definitely going to be energy that's going to be hard to settle, So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, and I will see you all for the weekend. Peace out.